everyone have fun summer plans for the rest of August. No.
There we go. There we go. There we go.
Turntables are
Almost there. Almost there.
Highland Hills and Bloomington, the ski hills. Those are,
Those two, yeah, although not up the ski hill. That's the hill part, that's the. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it won't be, the worst vacation ever.
What elevation are you starting at?
You should be good.
Yeah.
Awesome, look at that, we got camera, lights, camera, action. All right,
Can we confirm that they can hear us?
can everybody hear? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Can you see, can you hear? Yep,
Okay.
Amber, thank you. All right, let's repeat the thing just in case they didn't, the notice.
Yeah, so this meeting is being recorded. If you wish to not have your image or your voice recorded, we would ask that you leave the meeting at this time. Otherwise, the recording has started and we're ready to start the meeting.
All right. Good morning. I'm Tony Laurie, Chair of the Prescription Drug Affordability Board for a couple more hours. I'm calling to order the July 31st meeting of the PDAB. As a reminder, what I just mentioned, this is designated as our annual meeting for 2026 pursuant to our bylaws, and as one piece, we will be electing a new chair and vice chair later in the meeting. I note that a quorum is present with 7 members present. I didn't look for non-voting members. We have 2 non-voting members.
Let's take a look here.
But it's a busy season for them. Don't see
Yeah, we do not.
non-voting members, but we have all of the voting members, all 7 here in person. So for members of the public, please note that public comments will be accepted at the end of our meeting, as they are at all PDAB meetings. And we also encourage you to visit PDAB's website, where you can submit written comments at any time. Those are distributed to all of the board members, and we welcome that. An agenda was published on our website with 9 items, and we will proceed with that agenda. The first item is to approve that agenda. As noticed, it was published in advance. We're going to adopt the agenda. If anyone has any additions, corrections, comments on the agenda, we could entertain them now. Seeing none, without objection, the agenda as published before the meeting is adopted. The next item is to approve the minutes from the July 2nd, 2026 board meeting. I looked at them. I thought they were reflective of our meeting. Did anyone else, any other board members have additions, corrections, comments? Seeing none, the minutes are approved without objection as presented. The next item on the agenda is the data project presentation and discussion. So, Executive Director Vernon.
Sure. So we'll have a thorough discussion in the data project between the last board meeting and this board meeting. But we have invited Annalisa Stieber in again from MDH Health Economics Program to talk with the boards specifically about certain types of data that they collect from manufacturers that is sometimes proprietary confidential information that there is a statutory requirement for MDH to provide to the board. I'll open it up to Anna, but we will be, Annalisa, after Annalisa speaks for just a little bit, the board will have to go into a closed session, probably 15, 20 minutes, give or take. This meeting will still be operational. We would ask that you stay if you want, or you can come back and rejoin. But we will be moving to another room where we'll be having that conversation with them.
Okay. All right, I'm pulling up a PowerPoint, so bear with me as this goes through. Okay, good morning. I am Annalisa Stieber, and I lead a team in the Health Economics Program at the Department of Health, focusing on prescription drugs. And this morning, we're going to dive a little deeper into the data that we collect under the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act, and for which we share with the PDAB per the PDAB statute. So the first, here's the preview. So again, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of that data, the relevance to the PDAB, overview of what's included in the submitted data, and then the availability to the public. And then we are going to go and look at actual submitted data to give the board members a better sense of what is included there. And that will be the closed session because it will include a presentation of trade secret and not public data. So to start, this is all repeat, but just to kind of get get some orientation. Again, this is one of 3 obligations MDH has to the board, and this is sharing the what we call RxPT, that's short for prescription drug price transparency data. Let's see, it's not syncing.
Switched on mine, so.
Yeah, switching here.
It's just delayed up there?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's different streams under the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act. And depends on who's reporting, what the criteria for reporting are, all of that. And there are 2 of those streams that are the data that are shared with the board. And so if your screens are synced, you'll see that there's 2 subdivisions. The data there, we refer to it as price growth and new drug. This is what goes to the board. Also, last time we looked at various data sources that MDH maintains and how we can work with the PDAB to get that data. I have highlighted in green, again, if you can see it, the section, this is all repeat from last time, that we're focusing on today.
Alice, we might want to just
Yeah,
pause.
I'll pause here, because this is the new content. I've tried to put it on private view, but I don't know.
What is happening now? Yeah, what the fuck? Oh. What?
I let you in.
Oh, because we were restarting the whole meeting? Everybody's just.
No,
No,
just,
just on our end.
Everyone's- room.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good, good, good.
Are you still sharing?
I am still sharing, I believe.
I still want to share the screen right now, but I think it's still just coming up. Okay.
Okay,
Why don't you
you wanna,
flip through a couple slides real quick?
sure.
Does it? There we go.
Okay. I'll pick it back up.
Okay.
Confirm audio, can everyone hear who is joining online?
Thumbs up if you can hear.
Sounds like an audio.
Thank you.
Yep,
Yeah.
thank you, Amber. Okay,
Okay, so I'll backtrack just a tad. Again, focusing on the data that MDH collects and it shares with the PDAB. Under the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act, there are multiple data streams. We've been here before, so I'm gonna go fairly quickly. What the data pieces that go to the board are what's outlined in red here. So it is price growth and new drug. I'll get into that a little bit more. Again, from what you've seen, this is data that MDH maintains, and we're focused on this green square in the upper right. Okay, so new. What are the price growth and new drug reporting streams? So new drug refers to drugs that have been introduced to the market, and by drug I mean at the NDC level, that are new to the market in the United States, where the introductory WAC or wholesale acquisition cost is over $950. Okay, so that is the current threshold. It's tied to a Medicare pricing threshold, so it will change over time, but that is currently what it is. And then once that drug is introduced, manufacturers have 60 days to report to the department, and we'll talk about what they submit in a minute. The price growth stream is for drugs that are already on the market, again, drugs at the NDC level, and for which a price change meets certain % increase threshold. So these are drugs on the market that are increasing in price at a certain rate. There's two different rates for brand drugs, either 10% in the past 12 months or 16% in the past 24. And then for generics, it's 50% in the last 12 months. So this is the kind of initiating reason for reporting is a price change, price meaning WAC.
And Lisa, can I ask you a question about that 10% and 16% threshold? Is that because that's like way out of the norm for price increases, or like how did that threshold get set?
I mean, you can ask the legislators who passed it originally, but there's a number of price transparency programs across the country. All are in this range, roughly. Sometimes it's 15%, we have 16% over the different timeframes, but it's this sense of like, I think the 16% over 24 months is like, you could increase it 2% at a time at a pretty slow rate and have a significant amount of change over time, but not meet that, 10% on 12 months threshold. It's just trying to capture some of that. And you'll get a sense of how much of the market in a couple slides.
And Lisa,
Yes.
does the $950 WAC floor apply to the existing drugs as well?
No. For the existing drugs, I believe it's $100 or more. And then it's, as you can see, it's for a 30-day supply or course of treatment. Okay, so here's exactly what I was talking about. So this is a little bit of a sense for like, what does this include? The blue headed columns are new drug. The purple or pink are the price increase. So the first column there is the number of drugs introduced using Metaspan to pull these data in each of these years. So you can see that there's thousands of new NDCs every single year. Then moving over to the next column, these are the drugs that we have identified that meet that threshold, that price threshold. So it's 830 originally, now it's up to 950. So altogether, it's between 6 and 8% of new drugs that come onto the market meet that threshold and are required to be reported. Of those, then the third column is what we have received. And so we're getting reporting rates between 50 and 75% of what is supposed, like what we think should be coming in. So this will give a sense of like how much of the market roughly we have data for. Same pattern for the price increase or price growth drugs. So again, thousands of pricing events that increase the WAC. Manufacturers change that WAC over time. Of those, here between 16 and 24% meet those price increase thresholds and are required to be reported. And again, we see similar reporting rates between 50 and 75% roughly. Okay, here are the data elements that are submitted in each of those submissions. Again, at the NDC level, there are quite a few that are shared between the two reporting streams. So that's the first column, the NDC, the manufacturer, a description of the drug, basic information. We get things like patent expiration date, which is often findable, but sometimes difficult to find. The year of introduction, when did this drug first come onto the market? That's pretty widely available. WAC at introduction, so when they brought it onto the market, what was the price set by the manufacturer? 3 input costs that are pretty unique to this reporting. So manufacturing costs, marketing costs, and distributing costs. And then there's some general comments and attachment options that are optional. That's part of just kind of the submitting process to MBH. For the new drug reporting stream, there's just 2 designations in terms of like what kind of drug it was coming onto the market. Was it a breakthrough therapy designation, or did they get priority review by the FDA? Then for the price growth reporting stream, we get the generic name, whether there was a generic delay agreement, as in it was like a brand drug and they made a deal with the generic companies to wait to come onto the market. Quite a few data elements related to WAC or the price. So the date of the price increase, what the WAC was after, the percent increase, a 5-year WAC history. And there's a qualitative field where they have to describe the factors going into why they made the price increase. Then a few more financial data elements, financial assistance provided, rebates payable, units sold, so quantity, net profit, and gross revenue from sales. And then also, if the drug has been distributed outside of the United States, what the foreign pricing is for the top 10 countries. And then if the manufacturer acquired this NDC from another manufacturer, some acquisition information. That's kind of as applicable. Yes.
I'm sorry, top 10 countries, meaning in World Cup placement, in volume, in price. What defines the top 10 countries?
Yep. Let me just double check that.
I think it's the highest price.
I think so too. Like sales.
I think
Highest price paid for the previous calendar year.
Okay, so we're looking at the top 10 countries
Top
in
10
terms of
countries.
highest price.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was interested in the lowest price offered.
I was just, yep.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Future.
Can I ask you a question about the new drug elements as well? Are those by statute, or was that?
Yes.
And Lisa, maybe you will get to it, but what are the, so manufacturers can claim trade secret
Yes.
designation. Can you point out, and there's like a whole breadth of approaches that manufacturers take in asserting the designation, but which are the fields that most often are claimed as being trade secret?
Yeah, I will get to it a little bit more, but to answer directly, a lot of them, is the short answer. The marketing, manufacturing, and distributing costs are very common. The foreign prices are very common.
Even though you can probably find them.
Just
Right.
real quick for the purpose of making sure the microphone is catching it. The question is, which of these data elements are most frequently claimed as proprietary, trade secret, not public data?
Thank you. The patent expiration date is not uncommon. Most of those financial fields on the right-hand column, like financial assistance, rebates, paid, gross revenue, also common. General comments are common.
One more question.
Yeah.
Does anything about drugs whose patents are coming to their expiration date? I often think of a practice that I and others will call evergreening. We go from a pill a day to a pill every 3 days and can renew the patent under this slightly modified drug formulary. And how does price history and those kind of elements track along with drugs that might fall in that category?
Yep. There's no single answer, but when we think about is it the same NDC? Oftentimes they make a new NDC, so a new patent expiration date, a new pricing history, a new everything like that. Sometimes it might be the same one, but they get extensions. This is where I think that you gotta carefully look at the data, because sometimes it can be hidden, sometimes it's clear. But yes, I mean, that phenomenon absolutely exists. And this reporting can capture it. But if it's a new NDC or something like that, it's a more difficult path to trace.
The data element that I haven't really focused in on it, that's kind of interesting, is the generic delay agreement status. Do you get that very frequently? I mean, is that?
Trying to recall the numbers. If you read our most recent legislative report, we have a little section in there on these. But of the drugs, if you think about, I'm gonna go back to the last slide. Of the drugs that are required to be reported, I want to say 10% maybe indicated a generic delay agreement. That's,
yeah.
I don't recall if that's exactly right, but that sort of thing. So yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Can you talk about sort of like,
Make sure you.
Annalisa, can you talk about what our authority is in validating the information we receive and what our capacity and bandwidth is?
Yeah. So once we dive into one of the submitted reports, when we can actually look at the data, I put it next to what else we know. So you can kind of see some of these data are available in Metaspan or other data sets, and you can kind of cross-reference it. We've talked a little bit about how, sometimes, you can just Google foreign prices and various other things and find some of this information. But our ability to vet things like manufacturing costs is essentially zero. We can do some gut checks in terms of the reasonableness, in terms of looking at the data, looking at various data elements next to each other. So for example, sometimes financial assistance provided is 10 times as much as gross revenue. On the surface, that doesn't make sense. So kind of is that correct? Does that go through? But, we get for these reporting streams, maybe 1,000 reports a year, which in and of itself is quite a few. And so going through each of these at a minute level, even for checks of reasonableness, is a significant undertaking. So we do our best.
We have authority to penalize entities but the process of assessing compliance, engaging in correspondence, confirming our legal position, the strength of our position, all of that are pretty huge lifts. And in some ways, comparing the success of the program in Minnesota and the performance over time with that of other states, even though we're not where we want to be, the degree of compliance and information that we get, we feel decent about. But there are definitely performance gaps that we wish we could close, but that would require investment of staff time, resources, capacity, legal support, and the willingness to go toe to toe with entities that have pretty deep litigious bench.
Craig, you had a point to make?
Just one last question in terms of generics. I'm curious about if biosimilars fall under your definition of generics or if they are considered differently.
Yeah. Want to make sure. Yes, they are, grouped with generics. Okay. So, real quick, the vast majority of these data are available to the public. I mean, it is a transparency initiative. So, you can go and find these data on MDH web pages that have dashboards, interactive dashboards, so you can interact with the data, slice and dice in various ways. There are downloadable files for just the raw data. And we do more summary and analysis work in legislative reports and dig in a little bit more there. So again, transparency initiative. But as has been mentioned, with the exception of trade secret and not public data, that is not made available to the public in its original form. What is, however, the manufacturers must still submit that information to the department, and then we use it to aggregate. So we can, summarize, analyze all of that, and provide summary information so long as it doesn't identify any of those individual data elements that were indicated as trade secret or not public. And so now we are going to look at some actual submissions. And so this portion of the presentation contains not public or trade secret data. And this is when we need to move into the closed session.
All right. So I will explain a little bit too about this. Members, we have an issue to consider where we're going to start seeing some of the not public, trade secret, proprietary information. As a reminder, here's how the process works. Minnesota Statute 62J.87 sub 7A provides the board is allowed to meet in closed session when reviewing proprietary information according to the standards we developed or information provided by the Commissioner of Health classified as either not public data or trade secret data. The board's policy also provides that when considering data disseminated to the board by another governmental entity, such as MDH, the data will generally have the same classification when received by the board as they had at the entity providing them. And we are going to see an overview of prescription drug price transparency, price growth, and new drug data. This will be our first look at some of this data that we are supposed to receive. I will suggest that we recess the open meeting temporarily in order to take up that business in a closed session. During that time, the webcast in this room will remain open and people may remain in this room. Board members, MDH personnel, and our PDEP contractor, Joel Farley, will move into another meeting room for the closed session, and we will return here to this room and to this webcast when the open session is resumed at the call of the chair. We estimate the closed meeting will last 10 to 15 minutes, but this is only an estimate. Is there any objection or comments from board members? Okay, so then without objection, the board meeting will be recessed for a closed session and will be resumed at the call of the chair.
And for the board members, that room is just right next door. To the right.
Can somebody confirm that the audio is running? Thumbs up or, do we know, is the audio running? It looks, I see the mic acting like it's picking, okay, we do have it. And apologies, that was a long 15 minutes, but we are back. I will call us to order to resume our open session. I will note that the board met in closed session and considered a presentation of information from MDH on an overview of the prescription drug price transparency, price growth, and new drug data, including proprietary, non-public trade secret proprietary data. And no additional topics were covered and no further business was conducted. With this, we do have a board member that's going to need to leave a little bit early, so I think we're going to adjust the order of the items on the agenda and move to election of officers at this point so that all 7 of us can engage in that. Is there any objection to that? All right. Election of officers. We will now elect officers to the board. The bylaws provide for 2 officers, a chair and a vice chair from among the board's members. It is by majority vote. We will start with election of the chair. We'll proceed first to the processing of electing a chair, and nominations are now in order for the office of the chair of the board.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a nomination for Sy to be the next board chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair of the Prescription Drug Affordability Board for the upcoming year?
And so just for clarity, you served your 2 years and so now you're not allowed per our rules?
Yes, we adopted in our bylaws, we set a 2-year limit on being chair. And I believe that, you know, we discussed it. I believe that's healthy for a board. You know, I've seen several instances where chairs have found ways to, you know, ways around that. I believe that's really healthy for the board. I have enjoyed being chair for the 2 years and working with each and every one of you, and I'm happy to pass the baton and engage more fully, more board members. This is exciting. But any other nominations? Going once, going twice? All right. Given that we're all, yeah, let's.
We do have to, we do have to have one. I verify it.
Okay, okay.
Now, Craig, you need some. I'll come back.
Can I vote for Tony?
You can write the
No,
write-ins.
I'm turned out.
Oh. Yeah.
I can decide.
Yeah.
Here, while you flip those, I'll go listen to Craig.
Okay.
I don't want to ask you for anything. I made the nominations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't get the vote.
Do you need our names?
Or do you just need a pen?
No, he's.
Using the Chicago method?
No.
Could you really vote often?
Yeah.
All back here.
Okay.
The right number, and it shouldn't be more complicated. And I apologize, me and my nomination should have been Dr. Nick.
No, it's fine. We'll need to spend some more time together so we can. Maybe we'll all have nicknames.
Okay.
Call me Ace or something.
Okay. Okay, so we have received 7 ballots from every board member, and 7 of those ballots list Sy and Craig as their choice for chair.
Can I say a few words?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll sing a song. So I want to thank Tony so much for being chair of the board. I think we had a lot of very, very, very difficult work and uncertainty to move through, and you were the absolute right person to do that. And I have learned so much from you, and I am really hoping my intent is to just keep going with what your vision for this board has been, and really looking forward to now, thanks to all the great work that you led us through, being able to actually get it going. So thank you so much for doing that, and I'm really looking forward to sharing your phone.
So, thank you for the kind words. I'm looking forward
And
to
you
your
promised-
leadership as well.
But you promised me that you will keep taking my calls.
I will absolutely, I'm not going anywhere. I have been appointed by Governor Walz for another 4-year term. I'm on the board. I'm leaning in. I'm excited about the direction we're going. And so with that, we'll proceed to the second process of electing a vice chair. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice chair. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Matt Jabirin.
Second.
We have a motion, a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair?
I think there's some great candidates. I'm not sure who would be willing to accept. I would also see a nomination for Erica Barnes. I'm not sure she's in a position to do that, given her other obligations. I also think Matt Anderson would be a great candidate, but I am unsure of his interest in it.
I would also echo that there are a lot of great candidates for this role, if anyone has the passion and the time and interest to do that. And if not, I'm concerned.
And I also think Matt.
Thank you.
But none of that was a nomination. Just to be, it was
Quasi-nomination.
It was a
gentle vote, I think.
If you would like to self-nominate.
I would love to be considered in the future. At this time, I think my capacity is beyond, I wouldn't be able to do justice to the role at this time, but I appreciate your confidence and would like to be considered at another time when I have more capacity someday.
And just for clarity too, we do this every year. It's not a 2-year term, it's a 1-year term. The term limits is 2 years, but we will do this at our annual meeting next year. And Anderson, do you wish to say anything you were suggested as a viable?
Yeah, similarly, I appreciate even that you mentioned, so thank you for that. I would say, I'm very committed to this board and want to act in whichever ways are most helpful and supportive for the board. I would say personally, I think that with Chair Nick Pay, a vice chair, Matt Toberin, would provide more balance and diversity than having both elected officers from the same division at the University of Minnesota, at background, whatever. And so I think there's better representation and with the nominations that have been put forward.
Okay. Any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Seeing no further nominations, nominations are closed and we'll proceed to the vote.
I mean, I just feel like you're just pushing them. I'm so sorry.
Oh, and we have our minutes for spelling.
Misspelled dollars. Okay, okay.
This is a zero vote. Steve? So all the ballots have been cast. We have 7 ballots. Each board member voted. And we have 7 votes for Matt Tolkien, each chair.
Say a couple words? Or?
Thank you and do everything I can to support SAE and the board and appreciate the comments.
Excellent. Those positions become effective at the close of this meeting. So I will continue chairing for hopefully 45 minutes. And we got a lot of work to do though. So back to agenda item number 5, approved drug selection criteria. Vernon Rowan.
So we still have some other data. Can I do a quick?
Oh, yeah.
Just, and I'll go through it quickly, but I think it helps sets the table
Sure.
for approving the criteria.
Yep.
So I'll share the screen here.
Oh, I thought that the slide was.
On license.
No, you're good.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we went through a version of this slide deck at the last meeting. Since that last meeting, there's been, again, a lot of work, a lot of thinking, a lot of conversation in smaller groups about the right approach for what we initially called selection criteria. As I talk, you'll see that we've changed our thinking on what we might call that and how we would use it. But then also looking at the master list versus the candidate list of drugs, what should be the size of that candidate list. And so I'll just kind of start walking through, talk about how some thinking has changed or pivoted on that. So there we go. This is that same slide we had last meeting. It's just, again, a reminder of the process that we laid out. Kind of the master list, selecting drugs, creating a candidate list. What I put in yellow there is, so we were talking at the last meeting about selection criteria. And I think what became increasingly clear is that the word selection was perhaps leading us in a way that the board members weren't comfortable with. That somehow maybe had a connotation that if you applied a criteria, you rank drugs in that criteria, you were somehow mandated to look at the top 5, the top 10 in that criteria. As we've talked now, I think it's more like a data, it's an element. It's a ranking element. We will have the same concept in terms of the criteria that we talked about, but it will be used more as a reference in the information that's put in front of the board. It'll indicate the ranking on any particular criteria, but it's not directive in terms of directing the board to choose, say, the top 1 in each criteria. So the other conversation that was going on was about how many NDCs we would have on the candidate list. I think 2 meetings ago, we were going in with the idea that we would have selection criteria, 6 criteria. We'd look at select the top 5 or 10 from that criteria, and then those now 30 to 60 NDCs would be the candidate list for us to choose from. What became clear is there was a strong feeling by board members that was pretty limiting. There may be other factors that we've talked about and characteristics of a drug that would want us or you, the board, to review it, even if that drug didn't, say, show up in those top 5 or 10 nation selection criteria. So 2 meetings ago, we were talking about a 30 to 60 candidate drug list. It initially maybe made sense. The data was going to be pretty easy to get. But again, the concept was really going to limit choices. Last meeting, we did a pretty wide swing the other direction, a feeling that, and it still might ultimately be what the board wants to do over time. But we were looking at 10,000 drugs, 10,000 NDCs. Again, it would provide maximum choice, but as we had conversations with our partners at MGH, And we're looking at contracting and the price of data, say from Metaspan and IQVIA. It became clear that populating a list of 10,000 NDCs with data from all three of those sources certainly could potentially be done, but it would take a long time and cost a lot of money. The feeling that at that point, after we came to that realization, is we needed a third option that SIA calls the Goldilocks option, but option C. So we went from, we relied on the survey that Jill did with feedback when they were giving their opinions on the lists that we should use to select from. And they pretty clearly said we should be looking at the 62J statutory list of drugs. Made sense to look at the maximum fair price drugs. And we certainly had a legislative mandate to look at the drugs that were proposed by members of the public. So if you combine those three lists, that's about 1,300 NDCs. I think we've concluded that that is doable from an ability to acquire that data, acquire it on a timely basis, and in a manner or way that's affordable for the board. So I think what we want to put in front of the board, and that the question, we talked about approving selection criteria. Well, really that's more like data elements or ranking elements. Mm-hmm. And I think we also want the board to give their nod of approval of a candidate list that would be the three lists I talked about. That's about 1,300 NBCs. And that's just as a little more about option C that we talked about. Just a reminder, this is what we initially called selection criteria. We're now calling them ranking elements. They're the same, and basically the same definition. There are 6 of them. And so we did receive public comment from 3 commenters on the selection criteria. That was all the public input that we've gotten. So, Mr. Chair, I think what I would suggest is we approve the ranking elements, but then also approve that option C, that more limited candidate list.
Yeah, I'd like to get the board's perspective, the broader board's perspective on that. And also, let me say, the 3 comments that we did get, none of them indicated that they would like them to be shared on the website and published to the website. And I realized I've been misstating that. I've suggested that people submitting comments, entities submitting comments should indicate if they want them made public. They're all public through a FOIA request, public data request. So I've been misspeaking. If you'd like them published to our website, please indicate that. And none of the 3 came with an indication that they would like them published. Feel free to follow up with us.
Right.
If you would. My guess is that they would like them to be published. We will accept a later request to make them public. They were interesting to read. So, comments from the board on option C, the Goldilocks option. We started with a proposal that was like just not going to be comprehensive enough, too small, too narrow. Many drugs that we'd like to take a look at wouldn't be on that list. We swung the pendulum to the other side, and rather quickly talking to the data folks and looking at pricing, realized that that's a little too broad. Tried to figure out what would make sense then. How do we make sure that we have a good set of NDCs that is capable of populating the data elements for us each to do our own analysis and use our own lived experience to come forward and consider and propose the drugs that would make it into a review, a cost review, and a potential UPL if there are affordability challenges. Comments from the board that weren't involved in these conversations? Does this make sense? Is it getting us where we need to go?
Yeah, and I think this makes sense to me. It's not perfect. This isn't everything we need, but it's a starting point and at least gets us started. And then we can learn from that and then learn what other things that we need to know, particularly how it impacts patients in Minnesotans. So at least I see this as not the perfect be all end all, but at least as a place to get us started.
And as Vernon mentioned, utilizing the work of the PDAC and the advice that came from the PDAC about where we should focus our energies. You know, we're trying to be transparent in the work that we do and responsive to the voices in the community. PDAC has been a real help in our work.
So I too like the Goldilocks option. I think that finding some middle ground where it makes sense, it's not everything, but it's manageable and we can move forward. It may miss though some sort of key drugs that we may want to look at. I think about the conversations of the needs of the many and the needs of the few or the one. And I know we've taken public input. Might there be an opportunity where board members could recommend or suggest a drug that may fall outside of the Goldilocks option?
We actually had an explicit conversation about that. I suggested that we maybe open it up to board members to suggest up to 5 additional NDCs that don't make this list. I will say that was well received. And we have to take a look. We've submitted the list of 1,300 NDCs to IQVIA for a quote. And we believe that it would probably be easy enough to add some NDCs if board members, but there may be hurdles that we're not aware of. So the intent would be to open it up to additional NDCs from board members that take a look at the 1,300 and say, hey, wait a minute, you know, like these criteria did not capture these drugs that I believe we really should take a look at, and we want to respect, again, the lived experience that brought each of the board members to this table. So we'd like to be able to accommodate that. We can't promise it at this point in this first round.
And I'm just thinking the process for this would be, I can distribute to the board that list of NDCs that we have right now. And then between now and before our September meeting, if there are additional drugs they would like to add, submit them to me. And then we can work through the process of determining whether we can accomplish actually getting the data for those.
We're also going to be at a fairly unique venue next week at Farm Fest. I think Matt's going on the 4th. The 5th, I'm going on the 4th. Okay. And we're gonna talk to the folks at Farm Fest, you know, and we'll presumably receive some more public requests too. Those would be in the same category. We'll see if the bids that we get from Metaspan and IQVIA will allow us to incorporate those, and we would incorporate those as well. If not, we're not done with our work. We will maintain those lists and keep those additional NDCs for a future round. That's the theory. That's the proposal.
And while I would prefer the Hansel and Gretel approach to the golden, I don't think it needs to be part of a motion or part of a policy or anything like that, but this is our first foray into this. And so I think it would be appropriate for us to sort of put this first exercise in the notion that we will review these and probably change them in future ones. In other words, that we're not selecting this as the ongoing selection criteria for all time. This is just for this first.
Right. Okay. Yep, exactly. I mean, not included in this list, I thought MDH has done a great job with the drugs of substantial public interest. Those, by definition, are drugs of substantial public interest. The criteria has been, worked through. It'd be great to have them, but I mean, we just have to use the work of the PDAC and, yeah, but it's not the end all and be all. It's not everything, but it allows us to keep moving forward with a list of this. Steve, you had some thoughts?
Yes. I think we need to clarify, what are we selecting, indices or molecules? Because the list has indices on it. But for example, when CMS picked drugs to negotiate prices on, they picked a molecule and then they took all the indices for that molecule.
Right.
And so I would strongly advise that we pick molecules and the set of indices that are together rather than the indices. Because if you pick one indc, a drug like Wegovy would have 4 or 5 indices at least. If you only pick one, then the drug company will simply, if they put a UPL on it, they'll drop that one and sell the other 4. I mean, so indices is not the right frame of.
Except it is the right frame for the population of the data elements that go in, and then when it gets distributed to board members to do their, this is the vision, help us work through this.
Sets of indices that are in a molecule.
Yes.
Because if you pick one indice at a time and that's all we put a UPL on,
No,
it won't work. It's easy to game the system.
right, that's not what we intend. So once the,
Well, we've been talking about selecting indices.
we're talking about populating data elements at an NDC level, because that's
Absolutely, that we could do.
on the 1,300 NDCs. And then there's another piece of work that'll have to be done by the data group and with help from Joel and MDH.
Or somebody.
Somebody, and you.
I think we need to ask that somebody be appointed to start talking about the process from here on out.
Yes,
Because that's not clear what we're doing and how are we picking. So we get a list of 1,300, we each get it, we each come in and here's my 5, and we just kind of randomly throw them out. That's not a process. It's not a structured way to conduct the business that this board should be doing. We need a process. We need to talk through whether and that's called out in the letters we've had submitted.
yes.
And so we need to get a process down for how to do this.
Yep.
Before we move much further. And it's helpful to know that as we're populating the data, so we can make sure the data is there to support the process that we are defining.
Steve, I thought we had a conversation, or maybe I had a conversation with Joel, but the idea in populating the NDCs, because we did a comparison of what would it look like if we looked at all the NDCs versus all the NDCs rolled up into a molecule.
I'm fine with the first list being at the NDC level, and I'm fine with sharing the data at that level. But I'm saying when we get down to the end of the day and we say, are we gonna do an affordability assessment? I think that needs to be at the molecule level, not the NDC level. Because even the drug companies can't separate out their data typically at the NDC level.
So that wasn't explicit here, Steve, but I know as we've been having conversations.
So we need to make things explicit.
Yes.
We need to, and we need to know the process as we move through this. We kind of need to map out what's ahead, rather than, putting patches on the plane as we fly it.
100% agree, and think that was a really helpful context to say it publicly. So, and if you want to spell it out more, I mean, we are thinking that these will be combined into the molecules, and it won't be 1,300 drugs that we're considering. There's 1,300 NDCs.
I think there is an interesting question here, which is, we've had these 1,300 NDCs. Does it behoove us to say, okay, if there are actually 5 related NDCs for one molecule, do we want at this stage, if we just pick one, do we want to add 4 rows to this data set that has information for the other comparison drugs? Or is that something we push off to the review process? Maybe it's we push it off to the review process. And we just focus on the data.
Which
rows that
review
have-
process, the affordability assessment or?
Yes.
No,
Cost
the
review.
cost review.
The cost review.
Yes.
Okay, so and what do we do in the affordability assessment?
That, we have to get to that point. Yeah.
Okay, that happens before we get to.
Well, so Steve, we've got our data project group. I know you want to bring at least another person in there, but I do view that as the work of the data project team to come up with these recommendations that we bring to the board to consider.
We need to define, what that is and who's on that process.
Agreed.
It shouldn't be a committee of one.
We've talked about that and we agree.
Yeah.
It needs to be at least one other board member on there. But to your point, it's a conversation about this. We talked the other day, we do need to begin designing what the review process is going to look like. And that honestly, for the month or more where we're waiting for data to come in, I think that's work that the data project team can do with a supplemented data project team.
Well, and or staffing and other people.
Right, Joel.
And we also need the support and the engagement of the executive committee and
Yeah.
executive director.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for SIA, but I think we've talked about the fact that we need, if there's not someone from the data project on the executive leadership team, there needs to be a forum for a representative of the data project to come into the leadership team and share what they're talking about, share the vision, vet it. So that there can be that back and forth conversation that, to be honest, that we haven't necessarily been in.
Never more than 3 members,
Never more than 3 members.
never a quorum.
Are the 1,300 public or non-public?
The list of the 1,300
Already.
can be made public.
From public list already.
And I think NVH has published their run of the main 62J criteria list, right? Is that
For the drugs of substantial public interest?
Or sorry, no, the list of criteria from our statute. I believe that you guys published that, right?
Yes,
And submitted,
so
yeah.
the drugs that met the criteria in 62J90 are available online. It's a spreadsheet and all the NDCs that met those criteria and how we got to identifying those drugs.
It's the biggest part that came up with that 1,300 list of both publicly available. Well, it's the Medicare fair price list and stuff. Yeah.
And those referred by individual patients.
What was the time frame of the last study you did of the 62J drugs?
Those data were pulled in December of 25.
Based on data up through the end of December 25 or?
So it used multiple data sources. Most of the criteria can be identified just using Metaspan data. Some of the criteria that identified like a course of treatment or cost per year, we needed to use other data sources because that adds an element of time to the pricing. That would have varying, depending on the population, that would have varying timeframes that we use to populate.
Approximately through the middle of 2025.
Sure, probably.
Okay, so it's about a year out of date at this point.
Can I ask a question? For the purposes of just decision-making for this meeting, Steve, would you be comfortable if we did take a vote on approving option C, if we put the caveat that no NDC will be considered outside of its molecule at some point in our process, that no NDC that might make the list would be individually considered in isolation, at some point would need to be considered within its molecule.
Well, I think we need to talk about the process all the way through or how we're gonna deal with it. I'm fine with option C for now, but I just want to clarify, choosing NDCs and choosing one NDC
Yes,
is probably not a good policy
absolutely,
approach.
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense from how you described it. I think that the sticking point right now is just, do we wait until we have the perfect mousetrap built out to start our work, or do we say that we have enough line of, like, we've protected ourselves enough in our framework to say, you know, at some point, we'll approve this with the qualification that we would not individually consider an NDC.
I'm not asking for any more perfect mousetrap, I'm just saying that the 1,300 drugs, we should look at them grouped together by molecule and
Yeah.
Yes,
consider all of the NDCs within the same molecule
Yep.
as you're making a decision.
Sure.
Because that's the set that we will eventually get to.
And that is in the works. That is where we're hoping to go. We didn't get all the way through it, and actually I'd be a little uncomfortable calling it the molecule yet. I mean, because you laid out like 18 different ways you could consider what we mean by drug. And so I think we could box ourselves in unnecessarily if we tried to incorporate exactly how we're going to combine and consider what a drug is.
Yeah, and let's not call it NDC either, because that box is.
No, it's the population of the data elements. And I asked this question explicitly in a couple of the conversations. Is this the right way to start compiling the data? Are we going to box ourselves in so that we can't put together a drug at a later date? Is this the right approach, or do we need to be defining what we mean by drug and trying to populate data on the drug? And the answer I got pretty clearly was, no, we have to have it populated by NDC, and then you combine the NDCs into what we define as a drug, whether it be molecule.
However we say it.
Yes. And so that's where I was like, okay, if this is the right granular level to start at, I'm hoping we can get that far and start populating the data elements and rely on data people and experts in what drug means, which I don't include myself in that latter category.
But if, I just wanted to make it clear that if we're talking about NDCs, and if we get a list of NDCs, and if we pick 5 NDCs, if we say we're gonna pick 5 whatever's at the end.
Right.
NDC probably isn't the right level for that at the end.
100%.
How we get there, we need to plan it out so we know how to get there.
And but for your comments, that wouldn't have been clear to the public. So thank you. That's really helpful.
Right now, we need a motion on what we need to do to get the data set into members' hands and what we need to attach to that data set, right?
With the understanding that by the time before we get to the point of presenting something in front of the board in September to choose from, that it's in the format that you're suggesting, Steve. We're not sending at that point a list of 1,300 NDCs. We'll have the conversation about whether they're rolled up in molecules or.
It's in the 1,300, I don't have a problem with that.
I think that's what we need a motion on right now.
Tony, I'm forgetting, is there a motion on the floor, or
There
is
is
the
not a
chair
motion.
looking for a motion?
I would entertain a motion.
I would move this draft selection criteria ranking elements for our candidate drug list
For approval.
for approval.
With option C.
Option C.
I would second that.
We do not need to take a roll. We are all here.
Okay.
All in favor? Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor of Matt Coburns' motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Okay. Motion is
I
complete.
moved in that we withdraw the motion we passed at the last meeting. It said we were gonna do this for, instead of 13,000, that's on, it's in the minutes.
Yeah.
It's in the record.
Yep.
We withdraw that, in light of this.
Look for a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion to withdraw the too broad approach that we proposed last needed.
I don't actually know if that's exactly what our motion was last meeting.
It was pretty close.
It was
We
close, but
should, we
didn't
should
say
withdraw.
like all the NDCs.
We pretty much did.
Okay.
I think we did.
I mean, I
Okay.
think withdrawing it, I think it is in conflict with
Today's
what we're.
motion replaces it.
Yes.
Yes, today's motion is,
They're in conflict.
Yeah, right.
Right, that's
It's
why
replaced.
we're, that's
Today's
why we're
replaced.
withdrawing.
okay. Everyone understand the motion? Any further comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Excellent.
I think if we move here, we can talk about that as well.
Okay, executive director's report, item number 8. We're gonna have to skip around because we're gonna try to be as efficient and on time as we can be. So, executive director's report.
Yes, we just, I'll put it up there for folks. See? Okay, so quickly, actually, I'm gonna jump down my report here to future board meeting dates. Cursor down. I had said about trying to establish meeting dates for the remainder of the year. A complicating factor is that the thought is we probably need to move our September and October meetings to late in the month to give us the time to contract for data, populate data, and then get information in front of the board on a timely enough basis so that at the end of September timeframe, we are doing what Steve was talking about, is putting a list of drugs, molecules, however we want to define it, but a candidate list for boards to look at and consider. It became, I think I have found the date for September 29th, 2026. I believe that works for everyone. I polled everyone. It's more complicated for the October meeting in terms of availability, but also that allowing to make sure we have enough time. I would, if the board's comfortable with this, I'd like to go back and re-poll for that October meeting, which may actually end up having to slip into early November to get. It's a meeting where I think everyone has to be there. It's the meeting where we're going to be voting on the drugs that we would review. So if people are comfortable with that, I'd like to establish the September 29th board meeting and then continue to work on the remainder of the.
Confirm the room.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're not going to be in this room again.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's that. If we go back up to the top, sorry. Patient engagement, stakeholder engagement. We do have a handful of events, 3 events lined up. Farm Fest next week. Tony is going to be there with me on the 4th, and Matt will be with me there on the 6th. We're trying to figure out what the right clothing is to wear to Farm Fest, and Tony maybe can help us.
Jeans, cowboy boots, big 10-gallon hat, you know, if you got one.
On that subject, Commerce Communications put together a really nice piece for us at Farm Fest. This is a flyer that we'll hand out. I'll post this on the website for the public to see. Website, it's got a QR code. We'll hand these out. We'll have conversations with people, and we'll invite them to come to follow this QR code where there'll be a brief survey for them to fill out. What are your affordability challenges with drugs? What drugs are you struggling to afford? We'll also ask people if they're comfortable putting their emails on a distribution list for the PDAB, and we can start building that. And so this is a nice piece that we can now build off of for future events. I have scheduled an evening event here at Wilder Center on October 7th in the auditorium. I have not asked the board yet for members who would like to come and participate, but I wanted to get it on. So if you are interested in participating in that, please send me a note. Again, we can't have more than 3 board members there. That following week, I'm going to be working with a national organization to put together a virtual event probably that week of October 12th. I haven't set the date yet for that. I'm still talking with them. They have already started doing some work in terms of collecting feedback from Minnesota patients that are part of their network. And I believe I sent that to the board maybe at the beginning of this week or last week. I can resend it so that people can see that. So we've got 3 events coming up. I have had a preliminary discussion with an engagement, I'll call an engagement consultant, someone that SIA has referred. Had a good conversation with her. Her name is Jean Hanvik. I would like to suggest I put together a draft budget that would allow for retaining a consultant to help us. I'd like to, if people are comfortable, have her talk with a couple of board members, say what her ideas and are. She has been very active in engaging the employer community for feedback, but has done some patient outreach work too. And my thought is we could even just start out with, say, a 6-month contract where they put together 2 or 3 events for us. And we can evaluate if that's the right person or not, if that's the right thing that we want from them. But we do have the budget money for it. I think it would be good if people are comfortable with it to move forward with those conversations.
Can I ask a question? How can people register, or do they need to register for the October 7th event or like October 12th? How can public?
So that would be what we did when we did events before. The October 7th event, Take Action Minnesota, is going to help use their distribution list. So what I did before is they had a flyer basically like this that they sent out to those people with a QR code that would bring them to the PDAB webpage where they could register for the event.
And is it on our website where just a general member, somebody from the public not reached out to by?
It'll be in both places.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
it'll be.
So it'll be on our website?
It'll be on the webpage, but there'll also be this vehicle to draw people to the webpage to register for both of those events.
Okay.
And would people need to register? They can just show up on.
They could just show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just jump back, right? So what I'm hearing you say is you've identified a consultant that you want to hire, it fits your budget. And it sounds like what you're asking is board members to interview this consultant. I for one, don't feel the need to do that. If you want to move forward with this person, I would just prefer to give you the authority to do that. But if other board members.
Wanted to offer the opportunity. Eric, I know you've done a lot of work.
I'm happy to do it to Matt's point, if it helps and supports, I'm happy to do it, but I don't feel the need to do it. At this point, I feel like getting someone in place is really important.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want to slow down the effort to get someone to help support you.
Yeah. And to a point you raised, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I heard a little different. Maybe I didn't hear it quite right. I didn't hear like an interview process. I think we should move ahead. You should go ahead and engage. I heard talk to a couple of members to help understand what's important to us in outreach. And so I'd say a yes and.
Yeah.
Yes, move ahead, make the engagement and interview a couple of board members to help with the direction of what the outreach ought to look like in order to reach the communities that we still need to hear from.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think to raise that point too and kind of push on that a little bit, I do think also, and I know this is something kind of shared by the public, I think too, I'm happy to help with some of that framework around the methodology of engagement of the public. And that would be where the consultant would be able to help us to really get a methodology so that we're intentional, we're avoiding selection bias with the kind of feedback we're getting. We don't want to make assumptions about, what people are. So happy to help with that. I think that is really important.
I think if members of the public have comments about what they'd like to see, we should hear from them too. Like how, especially your piece about how you get a systematic sampling. That's really important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there a statement of work or scope of work for this consultant? And
is the object of this to come out with a study or a report or just to talk to a bunch of people?
There hasn't been
What's the goal of this?
there's been an initial conversation, not a scope of work yet, but there would be a scope of work. What I want to have more conversations with Jean to see what she can do for us. But for example, she has put together town halls on a pretty regular basis for employers as purchasers of healthcare. So I think as first, I'd like to get at least 2 or 3 events in 6 months that they would put together. To Erica's point, how do they gather that input, and then what do they do with that input to help us analyze that input? So at its basic level, those would be the 3 scopes.
And I'd add, Vernon's gonna need to work, you know, he's got kind of 2 bosses. He also is within the Department of Commerce, and they're gonna have their contracting requirements that he's gonna have to go through to spell out the statement of work and all of that. And it just might be why I'm okay authorizing it from this level is, you know, he's already got
I've already got someone checking.
decent amount of oversight to make sure that it works.
I was just curious,
Yep.
what's the output? What do we,
Right.
Right.
what's the output and how do we use that then? What's the plan to use whatever comes out of that?
Well, if we can get as simple as, these are drugs that are of importance and concern to me, but to Erica's point, collected in a way where it's statistically valid.
Yeah.
That it's, we're being a little more considered in what we, as opposed to just, there's 10 drugs and they're all the same.
I mean, as far as some more of that, I guess I don't even mind saying publicly, we even entertained, these conversations haven't happened yet, but talking to MDH
Right.
that does the health access survey every year, that does have a little bit of statistic validity, and seeing if we could partner with MDH to maybe include a couple of questions in our vein to have, you know, somebody who routinely does this work help us, you know, do another look. And that would be probably outside the purview of this contract, but we're just getting some thoughts about how we move forward. And again, we haven't had those conversations yet with MDH, but I think it'd be, we're looking, and if somebody, members of the public, members of the board, have additional ideas about ways that we can do this outreach in effective manners and have something that avoids selection bias and is, you know, statistically valid. We know that we've done a little deeper dive and really understand the drugs that are causing problems for people. We're all ears.
Yeah, and I think, so as we get more accustomed to this and more sophisticated in it, we're asking very simple questions now. And we've heard comments from people about these surveys need to be more sophisticated and directed in terms of getting meaningful input from patients. So I think that's a task that we'll start building. So just real quick, you know, to go along with this, I have put together a position description for what I'm calling a PDAP administrator. I've shared it with the executive legislative or leadership team. Eric and I have talked through a little bit. I haven't talked necessarily with Sai in detail, but the idea is to have that done. There is then a process I have to go through the boards and commissions to input that information to a state system along with supporting dates, supporting documents. When that is complete, then the state goes through a process of classifying that position in terms of what pay level would be. But that will take a while, but the intent is to get that process going now. We've got plenty of stuff to do in the fall while they do that, but hopefully come back at the end of the year being able to interview candidates and get someone on board who can take over what I'll call the administrative parts of this job so that I can focus my activities on more high value efforts. So real quick, a few more minutes. We've talked about the data project, but some specific things. We are still talking. It feels like we had this conversation 6 months ago. with Commerce, but it's started over again about whether or not the board members can actually have computers. We were told that we could. I'm pushing really hard. We've done this, and honestly, there's not a way to do our work. If you can't have remote desktops, you're gonna have to have our own computers.
Are they saying that we can't have computers now?
We are running into approval chains of people who haven't thought about this before, and they're not sure, and they keep bumping it up the chain. So, but I've made it clear that needs to be resolved before you guys need to have computers in hand in September. So, we've talked Annalisa has talked to us a lot today. But we will have continued conversations with Annalisa and her team, specifically about this first set of reviews, how we get the APC data that can be provided to us, what would be the technical requirements, and just how would we work to get that accomplished so that MDH could get us something, hopefully end of September timeframe, to populate the list. And I realize we haven't done it, we haven't worked through it. There may be things that hold us up a little bit. But, and then data sources, we did get a quote from Metaspan about 2 weeks ago. There were questions about that quote. It took Metaspan a little too long, honestly, to get back to us, but we did have a conversation 2 days ago, made clear what we're looking for from them, and I'm supposed to be receiving a revised quote that it wouldn't be for a limited set of data, it would be for the entire Metaspan database, access to that. I've also forwarded to IQVIA, the specs that Steve put together. That's been in their hands for a few days now. I'll follow up with them on Monday, but they said they could turn around the quote to us pretty quickly. And then we can work on the contracting process with Minute and James's work. I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you for that. We will turn to public comments.
So briefly mentioned in there was the date of the September meeting. We do just need a motion.
Do we need a motion? Okay.
A motion for September 29th to be at 9 a.m. at the Wilder Center in the other room. So we'll entertain a motion. So moved, second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Okay, thanks, James. At all meetings, we take comments from the public, and we're happy to hear from anyone who wishes to address the board about our work. We extend this to both people in the room and those who are joining us online. We do ask speakers to identify themselves and any organization you are representing at the beginning of your comments. As noted at the beginning, please remember that this is being recorded and will be published to the website. We ask to limit your comments to 2 minutes so that others have the opportunity to speak. And as ever, comments are without limitation to length are always welcomed on our website as well. So with that, let me open it up first and say if you're online and would like to speak, please indicate by raising your hand, but I'll open it up to members in the room first. Nothing? Okay. No comments in the room. Anyone online wish to offer public comments? Okay. I don't see any people wishing to offer public comments online either. So with that, we're at the end of our agenda, and our next meeting is scheduled for September 29th, 2026 at 9 a.m. It will be posted to our website, and the presentations that we've had in the public session here will also be posted to the website. I would entertain one more motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, members.
Well done, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I don't think it's a debate on this. It's not a debate. Yeah, I don't think that's a debate.
I didn't ask for, I asked for comment.
Have you stopped the recording?
I just know that James will let us know if we ever do something
If we get too far.
incorrect.